The history of Leap Castle is long and bloody, full of connections with the spirit world. From the site's ritualistic history, maybe it was inevitable that the castle would one day become a haunted structure. Or perhaps most of the hauntings are just because of the owner's cruel treatment of other humans and the lack of respect for the bodily remains of those who died there. But the castle also serves as a lesson that dabbling in occult rituals can be a lot more dangerous with unintended consequences than people realize. We'll explore all these terrifying moments in the history of this haunted castle. You may just be opening your door to something more terrifying than you can possibly imagine. Leap Castle's origins are still being determined. Most scholars agree that the oldest part of it was completed around 1250. However, others think the historical significance of that spot is much older. Evidence has been discovered that Leap Castle was built on the site of an ancient ceremonial stone structure dating back to at least 500 BCE, and it may be thousands of years older than that. Like violent demises, the ancient ceremonial ground is equally associated with paranormal activity, so it's possible that it also influenced all the ghostly sightings at Leap Castle, even as the castle's ownership changed throughout the centuries. At one point, the castle was protected by the O'Bannons, under the rule of the more powerful O'Carroll clan who owned the land. But an entry in the Annals of the Four Masters, the book chronicling the history of medieval Ireland, claims the peace ended in 1513. That year, the Earl of Kildare tried to seize the castle. This led to a bloody battle that ended with the O'Carrolls retaining their power. But many lives were lost in the senseless 3-year-long war. However, challenges from other leaders were not the only threats to the O'Carrolls. After the passing of their patriarch in 1532, a vicious power struggle started within the family and led to one of the most infamous killings in the country that took place in a section of the castle now known as the Bloody Chapel. The two potential successors were One-Eyed Tage and his older brother, a priest named Thaddeus. But the power grab didn't last long. While the O'Carroll family was at Mass in the chapel with Thaddeus reading from the Bible, Teague stormed the chapel swinging a sword and chanting religious rites as he plunged the weapon into his brother's heart. The priest died on the chapel floor while his bewildered family failed to save his life. This priest is now thought to be the oldest ghost in the castle, and he's still sometimes seen in the chapel. But you don't even need to enter the chapel to see his presence. Many people just walking past the chapel have often reported seeing a sudden glow from the windows of the ruins, as though someone has begun lighting candles inside. This may not be the only part of the castle he haunts. People have also seen a male figure in the priest's house, often pushing a barrel up the stairs, but when he reaches the top, it rolls back down and both the barrel and the man disappear. Could this be the same ghost? We're not sure, but we do know he's definitely not the only ghost roaming the halls at the castle. The castle wasn't just a fortress used for battle and a church. It was also a home, a tomb, and a torture chamber. The full extent of the horrors that took place here wasn't known until 1922 when restoration work began after a fire. Workmen discovered a dark and deep hole behind a wall of the chapel. When they went inside it to investigate, they were horrified to discover a stack of human bodies. There were so many that it took 3 cart trips to remove them all. Finally, it was discovered where they came from. The castle was equipped with an oubliette, an underground dungeon room that can only be accessed through a secret trapdoor in its roof. Intruders and unwanted guests would unexpectedly drop through the trapdoor and land on wooden spikes that covered the floor of the dungeon. They would die slowly and painfully in one of the most gruesome ways possible, impaled on the spikes, with no way to escape. Some people have no doubt this is the source of many of the hauntings. There are at least 19 different ghosts in the castle, but not all of them are as easily identifiable as the priest. They appear as shadow figures, disembodied screams, whispers, and temperature drops on the castle grounds. Some believe that some of the people who died a torturous death in the oubliette became these shadow figures. Tragically, they'll remain as unidentified as ghosts as their human bodies are. But they're not the most infamous ghosts in the castle. that title might be held by the Red Lady. Like the priest, she also dates back to the O'Carroll's time. The story goes that she was captured by members of the family, subjected to severe mistreatment, and violated. As a result, she became pregnant, but when the baby was born, they destroyed him. She ended her own life and now walks the castle, seeking revenge for the crimes committed against her. She's often seen raising a knife into the air, as though she's about to stab the person who sees her. Is it really surprising she's still full of anger so many centuries after her death? There are at least 19 ghosts in the castle, and 2 of them are little girls. They were sisters, Emily and Charlotte. They can be heard playing in the castle. Charlotte was born unable to walk, and is sometimes seen dragging her legs behind her as she tries to climb the stairs. Emily died at just 11 years old when she accidentally fell from the battlements. Some visitors to the castle have been terrified by the sight of a little girl falling from the castle until she vanishes right before she hits the ground. This is Emily. She will probably continue to fall from the castle for the rest of eternity. But as shocking as seeing a falling girl is for anyone who's not expecting it, Emily is not the most terrifying entity in the castle. There's one paranormal presence there known simply as It, but this is no ghost, and it was probably never human to begin with. In the late 1800s, Mildred Darby moved into the castle. She was a novelist who wrote under a male pen name, and her specialty was Gothic horror. At the time, the occult was hugely popular with the upper classes across Europe, and Mildred was especially interested in the dark arts. She knew the castle was haunted. One of her novels was inspired by the ghosts in her home, so she began holding seances in Leap Castle. Some believe this was a huge mistake, and she awakened a dark spirit that should never have been allowed in. That spirit was It. It's believed it's a kind of elemental, a natural paranormal entity that can attach itself to a specific place. But whatever it is, those who have seen it say it's the most frightening thing they've ever seen. Even Mildred was terrified of the entity, and she wrote a letter describing her first experience with the creature to her sister. The letter still exists, so we can tell you what she said. According to her, she said she felt someone's hand on her shoulder, and when she turned around, there wasn't a person there. Instead, what she saw was a small creature that looked almost like a sheep, but with a human-like face. She described a blood-curdling lust in its hollow black eyes when it stared at her, or at least what was left of its eyes, because its face was partially decomposed. She said the thing smelled nauseatingly of rotting flesh, and it haunted her for years, and she was not the last person to see it. Even today, visitors sometimes report coming face to face with the disturbing creature at Leap Castle, and they all agree that it's the scariest thing on that haunted land. Maybe Leap Castle was always destined to be haunted. It's almost common knowledge that sacred sites should be left sacred. We shouldn't claim them as homes. But perhaps it's more than that. Maybe the truly sacred thing that was ignored here is the sanctity of human life. Or could it be that those living here didn't respect the enormity of the natural order of the paranormal world? Whatever the cause, this castle stands as a warning to us all. We should never take universal order into our own hands. Some things need to remain sacred. If you have ever visited Leap Castle, did you see anything unusual? Let us know in the comments. You won't want to miss our last video. Click here to find out what other terrifying haunted places we have for you.